So, thank you for participating in this Juneteenth Joyfest Oral History Project. The project seeks to preserve stories, reflections, memories, and perspectives related to Black life, culture, creativity, migration, community, and joy.
Nice.
Before we begin, I would like to confirm that you consent to participate in this recorded oral history interview. Do you consent to being audio and or video recorded?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you consent to your interview being preserved, shared, exhibited, published, or used for educational research and public programming purposes?
Yes, I do.
Okay, awesome. So to begin, please introduce yourself in whatever way feels comfortable. So tell us about yourself. What's your name? Where you're from? Where your family's from? And just look, we can start there.
Well, my name is Grant McGaugh, and I am the seventh generation McGaugh in the Omaha, Nebraska area. That started out with my grandfather's grandfather. His name was Grant McGaugh. His son, Joseph McGaugh, migrated to Omaha through Kansas to Oklahoma, where they had a homestead, to Omaha, Nebraska, about 1910 or so, when we had the stockyards really bustling in a place where Black people could actually get a great job at a decent wage and raise their family. So he brought his family here. And my grandfather was I think the seventh child born. Don't quote me on that, but he is. His name was Gerald Cleves McGaugh. He's named after Cleves Temple that is just around the corner here, because that's Gerald Cleves McGaugh Sr. My father was Gerald Cleves McGaugh Jr. And my name is Grant McGaugh, and I am the last G, going from Grant McGaugh all the way back to Green McGaugh, who was born into slavery in Richmond, Missouri, in Ray County.
Okay. Wow.
That's my father's side. We went
Okay.
into my mother's side, which is a whole other story. They
Okay.
also started in Missouri.
Okay.
Emma Early Fisher came from Missouri in the Hannibal area, back in the 1850s or so. She was one of, I believe, about 18 children of herself. She had about 13 kids herself. And my grandmother's mother was one of those. She migrated from Missouri to Omaha, Nebraska, about the 1915 area or something to that effect. But the family had came here a little bit before that. But we are part of the Bryant Fisher family, which is the largest and oldest Black family in Omaha, Nebraska. And we're very, very proud of that. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 descendants from that. I'm part of the Walker branch. And my mother right now is the oldest living matriarch of the Walker branch. Her name is Paulette Mullen, and I'm her son. So that goes back to those 7 generations of different people that I'm direct descendants from in the Omaha, Nebraska area.
Yeah. And how old is your mom as the oldest matriarch?
She's 84.
Oh wow. Okay. And what were some of the stories and traditions that have been passed down to you from this family? And can you tell me more about these 3,000 descendants and how that's integral to Omaha and Omaha's culture?
I would tell you that I can only speak from my perspective, right? Yeah. I was born in 1963. I'm 63 years old now. And at the time that earliest memories of myself, we used to meet at Mandan Park. And so I was born into this tradition, and it was already almost 50 years into its annual family reunion that they have always done. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to celebrate our 110th next year in 2027. It's always, and I go back when I think about that, it is remarkable. When you don't think about it as you're growing up. You think everybody has family reunions, and they do. But not annually like we do, and it's just a beautiful family tradition, right? So I think when I think back to Emma Early and when she started in 1917, and she did it because her sons were about to go off to war in World War I. I believe it was World War I. She said, well, if anybody gets split up and that type of thing, we're going to all know where we're going to be in time. So it's always the second Sunday in August. It's always going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. Nebraska, and it's always going to be, the descendants of her children that have gathered in Mandan Park and then eventually into Carter Lake because it got so big, right?
Okay. Yeah, can you state your matriarch's name one more time? The organizer, just so that I can make sure that it's.
Oh yeah. So the organizer is Emma Early, and now I'm gotta go think about it. So it's Emma Bryant Fisher. Her original name, her maiden name was Emma Early.
Okay.
And she married, so it's Emma Bryant Fisher is
Right.
the matriarch of the family.
Okay.
Right?
And with the Bryant Fisher family, like you just mentioned the dozens of cousins before
Yeah.
we started the interview, and that has been coming up as just this infamous family in Omaha, and I would like for you to speak about that and just thinking about how movement and migration of your family's stories, like how that's shaped, Omaha. In
It's a
some
beautiful
way, and
story
also-
because when you think about it, a lot of people remember the stories of Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. The actual author of that was in the Hannibal, Missouri area. This is where my family, or Emma Early, grew up.
Mhm.
And when we go back into really what that history looked like, her father was mulatto. Her father was actually half black and half white. And the slave owner, basically, the plantation owner, was, he had married a woman from, well, you call it marriage, it was slavery at the time. But America's from Virginia, and they had children. They had a lot of children, and he treated her father very, very well. Meaning he ran the plantation while he went off to fight in the Civil War. But when he came back, and because of the situation at the time, he couldn't gain ownership of the plantation, so he went over to Quincy, Illinois, which is right across the river. It's not too far away, and he then raised the rest of his family. Eventually, they actually came back to we call it Eola, Missouri, which is right outside of Hannibal in that area. But I can't remember exactly who decided to come to Omaha. It became well known in the early 1900s as Omaha was a place, as I said earlier, a place that black families could come to and earn a great wage. And they could grow their own families and raise their own families, I should say, and really have a good opportunity at a life that was better than where they were. They were working in the farms and out in the fields and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then here they can just go to the packing house and really have a great opportunity. And that's exactly what they did. So she resettled here, I think in the 1902, 03, 04 area, and eventually her children followed. Right. So we have a great tradition in South Omaha. The original family is in South Omaha, and then my particular branch, the Walker branch, actually settled in North Omaha, one of the first, black families that came over in that time. This is on my mother's side of the family. I have a whole nother set of circumstances on my father's side of the family. But those traditions, I think it gives a lot to family and identity and who you are as a person when you can identify with the Bryant Fisher family, right? And we have that perennial reunion. Now, I'll give some caveats. Dozens of Cousins is our clubhouse.
Okay.
Kind of a membership around that, right? So you can obviously be a descendant of the Bryant Fisher, but you might not necessarily be part of the Dozens of Cousins because that's a membership.
Okay.
And the Dozens of Cousins, they do the annual family picnic. They make sure we pick the location and we get all the different monies and activities and logistics and all that put together for the family. We have a president, we have a whole hierarchy and a structure to that type of thing.
And so how many family members show up at these family reunions and gatherings? Like what is that like to...
It is beautiful because you got to see it, but every of Emma Early's children, those we call the branches of the family.
Right.
There are 13 branches, and every branch has a tent at the family picnic. So they put up their tent, they put up their banner, and then all their particular descendants will be in those locations. The Walkers have their branch. There's all kinds of them. There's Bryants, there's Kirchhoffs, there's Gullys, there's Grays, Mitchells. Somebody go, you missed me, but they're all there. Believe me, we're all there. So if you went to Carter Lake, second Sunday of August around 3 p.m. and you went out there, you said, wow, what's going on here? It's that big. There's a lot of people. How many? 500 plus. There's 2,000 descendants, and then on the 110th, it's going to be so big we probably won't be in Curtis Lake because we've got to get a larger location. Mainly, to probably get 1,000 to 2,000 people that'll come out to something like that because they're in other cities at this point.
And how did I know that you said that was the mastermind behind this and wanted to have the family together and link up, but when it comes to the branches, how what's the story of all the branches and them coming together in the same way?
It's never stopped because what really started even in 1917. Remember, I was born in 1963. It continued to thrive. So those descendants, a lot of them still stayed in the Omaha area. That's I think it made us special. They did not move away. They stayed right here. So that it was just a continuation, generation after generation of the same thing. And it was very basic in its fundamentals. We have a fish fry in the morning. Right, every morning, and that's what they used to do. Because Mandan Park was right off the Missouri River, and the brothers and uncles would out. They would go out, they would fish, they would bring them back, and then we would fry fish early in the morning. And then we would set up our tents, and everybody would have their areas. Earlier they were closer together because it wasn't so big, but now it's gotten very, very big. So everybody brings their own fish and they're frying fish, and we're in our own tents. But then over time we start to visit the other people, and everybody knows everybody. Hey, how you been doing? And so that's all taking place. So going back to answer your question, even over time, it hasn't changed so much in its fundamentals. We have a family book. Everybody has written in a book, and I think it's every 5 years. Our historian, her name is Arlette, and Arlette makes sure, Arlette Brooks, I believe her last name. So Arlette will document all of our newer descendants, the newer generation, and we make sure that they are in the book. So right now we have 100-year book, and we have 105, we have 110. So if you've got new family members, we ask you about that, and then we'll put them in the book, and we publish it every 5 years or so.
Probably, like I said,
I'm thinking about
in the community,
everything that you just shared with me, and I'm really blown away by the investment that the whole family has put into like keeping this tradition alive. And I'm also wondering, like, how do you guys pass that down to like the millennial generation and the Gen Alphas and the Gen Zs? Like, what does that transference of preserving y'all's rich history and legacy look like when like so many of these traditions of Black community and familyhood, seem to be kind of stripped away a little bit once the matriarchs die and aren't able to carry it out anymore? That labor of the matriarch once she's gone, like how do you still make it very important for family to come together and know each other and know like, hey, you might be out, so you need to know that these are your relatives, so you can be looking out for each other and like having that sense of community within your family. Like what's the pass down for that?
As I think about that,
Okay, so you're not sure when you're going to start yet.
and remember what I said earlier. When I was young,
everything is going.
it was already 50
You
years
see
ago.
those lights there?
50 years, right? And I was born in 1963, so I was going through the 60s. It was just a part of life. It's juiced in. It's not something we just, every now and then we would do. This happened every year, and there was a lot of people there. It was fun. So I think because it was fun, and it was nice to know how you were connected. I mean, we get together even now, and we all talk about, well, how are you connected again? We connect the dots, well, the family members and whatnot. But passing that down to the younger generations, they want to play. They want to know where they fit within that whole family hierarchy, where they are located, and some of the stories that are passed down through time of how this all happened becomes a Omaha tradition. Gabrielle Union is a part of our family. A lot of people don't maybe realize that, but she is. And I would say, even though she's been coming to the family reunion before she was ever a world-renowned actress. So she's juiced in like everyone else. This is part of the tradition. She probably can't wait for her kids to participate. Like every year we have races. We bring all the families together by age group. Say, okay, all the 4-year-olds are going to run. run, or the 7-year-old's gonna run, 10, whatever it may be. So we all get to know each other more than just, you know, that first year getting together. So how do we hand that down? I think it's just part of our DNA when it comes down to it. My family, even though most of my family lives in Miami, Florida. I'm talking about my kids, grandkids. I even got a great grandchild. But because they would come here every summer, I make sure they came here every summer. They got into the family tradition. They understand what they do the night before, prepare the food, preparing the food. Usually a grandmother, not just a mother, a grandmother. They're part of that, and it's just.
Which one?
Again, I think it's DNA. You know, so you use that, and we prepare months ahead. We gotta get our T-shirts. We can't wait to have our T-shirts. Every year we got a new T-shirt. So somebody out there might have 100 T-shirts. I don't know for every single year that we've been doing this. It's been a long, long time. But to answer try to answer that question even better, like how is this perennial? I go back to what I said in the first place. You always know when it is. You always know where it's going to be, and you know who's going to be there. So even though you grew up maybe in California, or in Texas, or in the East Coast, if you're like, oh yeah, I'm part of that family, you can find out where you're going to be. I'll tell you one more story. We had a family member out in California that found out that he was related to the family. And he found out because of the information that was out there, the social media was out there, and then he came out there, we were able to verify, like, yeah, so he was definitely part of the family. He now is becoming every year because it's contagious and magnetic in what we do, and we do it so well.
Yeah, you dropped the last name Mitchell, and I said, wait a minute, let me start looking and see where my branch is in the you know, dozens of cousins, and well, not dozens of cousins, but the Brian Fisher. Yeah, so okay, I'm gonna try to ask this question again because I hear what you're saying as far as like the family knows that it's the second Sunday of August, and which part, and maybe if it changes, that will be known as well. But how do you get the younger generations interested in taking on that? You know, like how are you guys planning on passing the baton down, or is that also just juiced in the DNA and somebody raised their hand and they're just ready because they have their vision for, you know, how
I'm gonna say it might go back to even the dozens of cousins as a courthouse because it's a system.
Yes.
Right? So each family member can bring somebody to the dozens of cousins to represent their branch and talk about the things that need to take place for the family. You know, whether we're doing fish fries, or, you know, we collect money throughout the year to do our family reunion that's going to take place. If you're a 13-year-old and you're watching your 20-year-old getting ready for the next day or preparing food or whatever it may be, and you're watching your 40-year-old, it could be your aunt, your mother, and then you're watching your 60-year-old grandmother, it's part of who you are as a person. And it's just handed down. Now, if you're not around the family that much, when you come around the family, you're like, oh, I want to be a part of that because it's contagious. I wish I could tell you like what's the DNA, what's the secret sauce. And as I see my own younger cousins taking up the baton and being ready, and I'm telling you, it's like a movement, an army a platoon walking out to that park every year to set up. We're setting up at 6 in the morning, and they have breakfast out there, and they bring in their tent, they're bringing all the food, the utensils, the grills, everything. And everybody has a role. So let's say you're 7 years old. Well, maybe your role is to bring the ice. Maybe your role is to bring the bread. Maybe whatever it may be, you're part of it. So you grow up with that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what's like a family story that, as I guess part of that tradition, like what's a family story that should not be forgotten in y'all's family history that you guys like passed down? And it's a known, just like everything else is like baked in. What's that story that's
it's the origin story.
Okay.
Everybody knows the origin story. To your point, like where did all this come from? So the story of Emma Early, the story of Emma Bryant Fisher is told to everybody. Then you want to know who's my grandmother. Everybody, then it kind of branches out. So everybody has their own story around what they were doing, what their tradition has been. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I left in 1991. I lived in Miami, Florida for 27 years, but coming back, that story is very fresh in my mind. I can go to her gravesite here at Graceland, the original matriarch of the family, and then trace it from there. Because that lineage is so visible, you don't really have to go through something like history.com or something like that to find out, because it's a lived experience. And you can see within your own grandmother's eyes the grandmothers that passed before, because this has been passed down for so long. And when you think about it, and we have pictures and videos, for many, many, many years, and it becomes a point of responsibility to make sure that the younger generation carries this forward and they understand the story.
Yeah. I'm honored to be sitting here with you right now.
Thank you.
So it's just really amazing to hear you speak about your family and the traditions that you guys and values and practices that you have been carrying across generations. And this year for the Juneteenth Joyfest, which is why I'm doing this oral history. Don't worry about that. Is just the theme was about Black arts and cultural expression. That's the theme for the Juneteenth Joyfest this year. And so hearing about all of the traditions and beauty that is already embedded in your family, like what role did creativity and art and music, like obviously storytelling, but like faith and craftsmanship, how do those play in your family and your community? And like growing up, how did art get into the mix of this beautiful family? Because I mean, you have talent in your family too.
Yeah, we have a lot of talent, and I tell you, we're sitting right here in the Great Plains Black Museum, and we're here. The executive director is Eric Ewing. I actually grew up with Eric. We went to high school together, and his brother. So I know them beyond their current roles. I remember when they were just running track or running around the schoolyard or something like that. And it's part of that upbringing. So seeing them involved in the art, especially now with Black History, with that you have the responsibility and accountability to hold that historical significance for this region in the Great Plains. It's huge. We have so much rich history. You want to be a part of that. What can I do to bring myself there? I remember when I was little, I used to listen to a radio station. This in the 1970s called KOWH. And KOWH, every year, especially during Black History time, will come out on the radio and say, and give us a name. It might say like Barack Obama. Well, who was he? A Black man. Well, what did he do? And he was the president of the United States. It would go on and on. All the way from Langston Hughes or to C.E. Airman. You learned about Black culture because you were surrounded by it all the time. So I didn't have a gap in knowing Black people were historical people, and they had a lot of significance. But if you don't engage with that, it goes away. So where my family did, I went back to my father's side of the family. We have a church here, Cleves Temple Church, in which it would be my grandfather's father helped build. And he felt so much about that church that he gave his son the middle name of that church. So Gerald Cleves McGaugh Sr. So he felt a lot about it. So there's a lot going on when you think about the history that was going on, especially in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. Now, Omaha was a very bustling location for a number of years for jazz, for blues, for people that went west to St. Louis and Kansas City. They would come to Omaha. A lot of your great blues players came right here in this very building that we're sitting in right here. But because in the Civil Rights era, you had the riot came, and it kind of destroyed a lot of 24th Street. So what I knew, as we called it, the deuce, it was always kind of burnt out. It was always, it was not fluid, and it wasn't, the buildings were not kept. My mother's age, when I grew up, it was a bustling community. I mean, it was a lot going on all the time, and it was a place to be. So you had Count Basie coming out to Omaha, they were like, wow, I couldn't wait to get out here. We've lost some of that luster, but we're getting back to it right now. So we're trying to let people know what the community represents in the Midwest. There's a lot of, when I go to U.S. Virgin Islands, I have an office down there as well. I tell them all the time, there's about 80,000 West Indians down there, or Virgin Island people. We have more black people in Omaha, Nebraska than they do in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So I like to tout that. That's why I like to talk about that. So yeah, this is an area that has a lot of black culture, a lot of black people, a lot of things. You're here in the Black Museum. You'll see a lot of this here. What's that big picture where I'm looking over here is Malcolm X.
Yes.
Malcolm X was born here.
Yes.
Tell me, did not capture the soul and spirit of the black experience in America? The struggle, what you have to go through, the defining your identity, discovering that identity, and standing in that identity, and calling out what is against that. How can you stand for freedom when you're not standing up for my freedom?
Right.
This is very, very big, right? And now we have the first black mayor in Omaha, Nebraska, who is Eric Ewing's brother, John Ewing Jr., and he's doing a fantastic job. I see a renaissance taking place here now, that culture, arts can rise again, especially in the era of artificial intelligence, because now everybody can have their hands on these things and showcase their knowledge, their experience, their domain authority in many different ways. So I'm looking forward. That's what brought me back to Omaha, Nebraska.
What?
Right?
What brought you back?
Well, number one was my mother, and my father still living here, and I wanted to come back after an absence of 35 years and see what Omaha was about. But I saw it was an opportunity first to showcase what I've learned in being in information technology for over the last 30 years, showing that this platform change into artificial intelligence is a game changer. It'll change the playing field of humanity in the workplace for many years to come. So I came here to make sure I light that fire, I showcase what's going on in that area. I can teach people through my AI accelerators as they go forward to get a touch on this, to acquire a skill set around this, and then they'll be able to then profit from that for many years to come.
Okay, so I love that we have ended up at the AI conversation. Mostly because, like, I think as an artist myself, what I'm grappling with AI, like, I think there are some advantages to AI, especially like as a black person, just language in general, right? Learning language on how to like better leverage opportunities. Like, I think that is where AI is a game changer for black folks. Like, really, we can really like elevate the work that we do, and have the language for the work that we do. And sometimes I think our work isn't valued as highly because we don't always have access to that language. So I do think that AI has like a really great point in that. But then when you think about like all the environmental aspects of it, and how like they would rather have data centers with these crazy noises and like black spaces because of sacrificial land and things of that nature, then it changes to a different story around like, is this actually a good thing, or are we gonna, who's it gonna harm the most? And so when I think about AI and who it'll harm the most, even though it may give us so many advantages, like environmentally, we won't have those advantages. We will be the ones suffering. So it's I don't know. It's like a bittersweet advancement. And as far as it dealing with art, that's where it gets tricky, because it's like, well, did you make it? Who made it?
Yeah.
And where is it being sourced from? And I think authenticity is going to be, that's going to be the I don't know if I want to say the iceberg or...
No, it makes it valuable. I will answer your questions.
Okay.
I think everything you were saying is very, very valid. As somebody that has been involved in information technology for 30 years, I've seen a lot of different change. I understand what you're saying around, well, because AI itself, a lot of people don't maybe realize it's not, it takes a lot of energy to produce this kind of continuous real-time output from AI. It has to draw from a lot of different data sources in order for it to work. Right. What this will happen is that we'll have to innovate. You can't keep doing the same data center configuration that we've done before, because it's not sustainable.
Right.
It really isn't. So it makes you, and if you look at what Elon Musk is doing with SpaceX and things, and say, hey, maybe we can put these things out in space. Maybe we put them on the ocean because they take a lot of energy to produce. It'll make a change. And hopefully, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they'll be more environmentally conscious and understanding that if you're polluting the water, you're polluting the area, then you're cutting off your nose in spite of your face.
Right.
And so you have to be very, very aware of that and the powers that be that control it. At the same time, we can't wait for that as people. If we don't get on board with what this technology actually does, we'll be very far behind. Meaning, just like if you didn't know how to use Microsoft tools, you don't know how to use Google tools, you don't know how to open up a laptop and use email, that's a problem. Same type of thing. You need to learn these tools and understand what they do. The authenticity part of it goes back to my framework that I teach, right here behind us. I'm here for my book signing. BRAVE is it's an acronym. That's about brand identity, that's about resilience, that's about authenticity, it's about visibility, and it's about execution. AI is a very good mirror when it comes to, I can utilize this almost like a clay, if I think about it, and then manipulate it in a way that it'll produce an output for me that can be done at speed. Right? There's three things that technology does very, very well. Number one is speed. If you need something done very quickly, speed to market, you cannot beat speed. If you do it quicker, usually that's better. In certain circumstances, not all circumstances. The other one is communication. If I can communicate in many different modalities, whether it's text, image, video, presentation, that's a big win. Because communication is how we connect all humanity together. That's big. The other one is scalable. If I can do it and scale it at a much higher rate, then I can take one person, make them 10. That makes me very, very powerful from a leverage perspective. So we can't get away from what AI can actually do from a speed, communication, the scalability. We have to be responsible. We have to be accountable and understand the do's and don'ts. We need more AI governance. Don't get me wrong. Those things have to take place. But all those other advantages are things you cannot unsee. Just like radio, television, mobile computing, cellular technology, social media. You're not going to stop doing these things. They're not always good, but I think the good far outweighs the bad when we know how to be more mature as we work with these different things. Authentic art is still going to be valuable because it's a human-to-human interaction, right? It's okay if I want to spin up a very quick flyer, let's just say, create it real quickly and get it out there. We've been using Photoshop for a very long time. Some people know how to use it better. Some people are not that good at it. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I'm going to take the time to make a painting, that painting is a very beautiful thing. It shows a skill set, right? It shows beauty and artwork. Machines can only do so much. They don't have feeling. There's no feeling involved in something like that. Artwork generates a feeling.
So you think that, or what I'm hearing from you, and I'm just asking for your clarification, is that the authenticity of art is going to exist because it's a human-to-human interaction or experience, and so it doesn't matter what AI's got going on because that can't necessarily be something that AI can produce.
No.
And so thinking about that, like, who are some of the artists, musicians, writers, or educators that have helped shape your understanding of Black identity or like creativity in?
You know what? I would tell you that is growing up. Good point. One of the biggest influences in my life was Alex Haley. Seeing Roots for the first time in, I think it was 1976 or so, understanding his story, that took me through a lot of pain as a teenager, of really understanding the reality of slavery. One thing I liked about Roots and how it showed you life in Africa before slavery. I think that's one of the problems we miss in our African American experience, is that we start our origin story in slavery, which our origin story is much deeper and more broader than that.
It's more complicated.
Way more complicated. That was a let's just say shipped to shore, maybe a 400 or 500 year experience. Well, black people have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. We can't cut that off. And because we do that, we cut off our life force, and we cut off our history, we cut off our identity and who we are as a people. We don't see ourselves building kingdoms like Timbuktu. We don't see ourselves building kingdoms like in Grenada or Songhai. And because we don't, it starts in the plantation in America, which is a very bad origin story to talk about. Roots took us back to where you saw before he was a slave. His name was Kunta Kinte, right? And it also showed you the pain of losing his identity when he started having to call himself Toby. That was a powerful moment. I know it was a powerful moment for me. I'm going to school like, man, I want to be Kunta Kinte. I don't want to be Toby, right? And then you start learning about stories like Malcolm X, and then his story was written by Alex Haley. And he talks about that identity. How did he get on Malcolm X? You know, he had to drop little. I'm dropping that because identity. I think identity is a big thing. And as we grow and understand where we are, one of the good things about artificial intelligence, you can find out more quicker that type of information about your identity as a black kingdom, as a black, what we are as an entity here. And we are the most financially able group of people. We are the most technically savvy group of people, and we're the most educated group of people. I'm talking about the African American experience.
Yes.
Our weaknesses in our identity. That is the problem. We don't identify. We went from being called nigger to Negro to black to now African American, and you're like, you know, to an African, you're like, that don't make no sense. You, this is who you are. Like I talked to an African man in Kenya, and he told me, I didn't realize I was black until I came to America. Because everybody's black, so that's not a thing. No one says, oh, I'm black. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Your identity usually is either tribal for the most part in those respects. So understanding identity and that fractured identity and really coming together to who we are as a people is going to be still a struggle, but it's coming together. As I said, it doesn't mean we have to go back and be a tribal identity, but we are a tribe of ourselves as African Americans, and standing in that, and it's a very strong position to be in.
I know that you mentioned that, you know, for Black Americans, some of our identity starts at slavery, but I would say that is how American schools teach us our identity, but that's not always how it's taught in the household, you know, and that is not, I think overall that Black Americans actually have a very high level of self-esteem. I think that it's other cultures and communities of people who subscribe to the stereotypes that have been exported about Black Americans that create tension for us to not understand how much we've actually contributed globally. Because to me, and the way that I'm experiencing my Black American experience, especially with the, I would say, especially being a child and product of the hip hop era alone, my racial pride and and self-esteem is high because I look around and I go, oh, we're global. We've impacted the way people dress. We've impacted the way people talk. I can go anywhere. I actually can go anywhere globally because as a millennial Black American, I would say we've pretty much been given a lot. We still have to deal with the system of racism and white supremacy, but generations before us have made it possible for us to vote, and we've been integrated, and we have access to information in totally different ways. So I think like to have our culture reflected back to us in this day and age, have our culture reflected back to us, and people say that we don't have a culture and that we don't have an identity is just, it's BS, because if anything, we're the most hated and the most emulated.
Both ways. And I love what you said, because that's the absolute truth. And that's where I feel the call to action is right now. We have to tell our story.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot allow other people to tell a story. You cannot erase history
Right.
as much as you may like to. To your point, we have influenced music and art and culture worldwide. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Just
But
like your family is contagious,
it's contagious.
Black American culture is contagious.
And we got to lock into the monetization of that. That's that disconnect. The other cultures are still monetizing on our creativity. So
Yeah,
the
but
more
we're
that we
so-
can ownership, we got to own that. And the more that we will own that, because no one can emulate or simulate our artistic ability. You have that. What you're doing right now is beautiful because you're telling the story. The more we tell our story, the more we own that story, the more profitable we will become, and we can hand that down to these other generations as well. So it's like, this is our narrative. This is how I see us, and I see us even moving forward. So I love your narrative that you just stated. That's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. And so this is great because now here's the real question. What does Juneteenth mean to you personally? And how has your understanding of freedom changed over the course of your life?
I just wrote an article yesterday on Juneteenth, and I featured a African American woman, probably in her 30s or 40s, standing on top of a building. You can see this if you look it up on LinkedIn. And I said, I talked about the delay, because it was a 2.5 year delay from the time where slavery really ended to the time they were actually told you're no longer in Galveston, Texas. Slavery was over. That 2.5 years, it was delayed. Freedom delayed is the story to me of the African American experience in America.
Mm-hmm.
We have been delayed our due systematically and by law, even after slavery. Don't even go back there. You can continue on. Why? Why are you this self-limiting? They don't want you to grow economically, right? It's like, no, we want to make sure that you stay in this worker class and not be able to participate as a free entity to grow and build your own economy.
Well, to that I will say that we did build our own economies. We did have our own spaces. We were self-sufficient, and because we were and exceeded expectations, it was bombed. It was destroyed.
Mm.
You know, so it's not. It's still systematic. I'm like, we
systematic.
have.
That's called. It's terrorism. So
Well, yeah, that too. Yes,
you know.
it is.
So going back to what you're saying, how do I feel about Juneteenth? So I thank you for freeing us, but then you didn't allow us to be free afterward, and through Reconstruction. You'll talk to Eric Ewing here in a minute. He'll talk about that because it's been a struggle just to have parity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you for more. I just like, how would you just leave me alone?
Sovereignty.
Right.
Yeah. If we could just have sovereignty.
I give you, for instance, I talked about the riot that happened here in Omaha, Nebraska, like in the 1960s, and then not being able to rebuild.
Is that a Vivian?
Excuse me?
Was that riot the one? I think there's a plaque down 24th
Yeah.
about Vivian. Was that her
Yeah,
name?
there was a woman that was shot by the police and
Right.
sparked the riot. But remember, this was during Martin Luther King had got shot. It was turbulent time
Yeah, all over the
all over the U.S. But in Omaha, but what I'm saying is after that, you could see what was no more investments coming into the 24th Street. This is the business district, right, for the black community. No reinvestment, and then they brought a highway right through it to make sure never going to be really true development within the borders of where black people really live and reside in the population. There's in other areas. Why did I leave Omaha? Well, I had more opportunities somewhere else instead of building in my own community here. But this happened across America, not just in Omaha, Nebraska, unfortunately. So it's been a struggle just to build. I think our call to action right now, we have to build. We have to own and we have to build. And once you have ownership, you have leverage. And without that, it becomes a real struggle.
Yeah. And so You said once you have ownership. Say that one more time.
Once you have ownership, you have to build. Once you have ownership, building, then you have freedom. Other than that, you will not have true freedom, even though someone can say you're free. Here's for instance, most people don't realize in the American system in capitalism, if you don't own real estate, you don't own any kind of insurance, you don't have any stocks and bonds, and if you don't have, I think, about $2,000 in the bank to pull on as capital, you're technically bankrupt. And that applies to a lot of black people all over because they just don't have the resources and understanding in our educational system. You are playing in the game of Monopoly. You can pass go for a little bit of time and collect your $200 and pay rent, but guess what? You're going to have to own a house. You're going to have to own a hotel. You're going to have to own a block to actually play in this game.
Mm-hmm.
We don't own that. We've been systematically denied a lot of ownership. We're trying to get back to that because of a lot of other things. But still, you have to start where you're at now. We have to play that game.
So how do you feel about that in terms of this business district now and some of the changes that have been making now that you're back home? What is that? You know, this is still a space that is kind of in this in-between space before gentrification really picks up here, right? So what are your thoughts around 24th Street now, the Union up the street, the Great Plains Museum right here? I think there's a motorcycle club down the street, the Zodiac, and I'm, the Omaha Star being right here. Like, how do we keep 24th Street black?
Oh my God. Well, we are right now, I'm glad you asked that question. We are going through a renaissance. This is happening right now. We have investment dollars. We have capital. The money is not the problem right now. It's the deployment of the money. Omaha Star, that's been here for a long time, is now gotten a grant so that now it can rebuild what was once a great paper, and it will be back to that again, showcasing black excellence here in Omaha. You have the Omaha Inland Port Authority. They have about $120 million they can pump directly into North Omaha to build a center of excellence here, right? That's now going to be connected to what they're building through the Omaha 100, that they're reinvesting in small business and home ownership. You're seeing right here, as we said yesterday, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Jubilee for the Great Plains Black Museum, which now they need about $10-15 million to rebuild this particular museum. They're 40% already done, so we're going to get the other 60%. This will look completely different. The Malcolm X Center that's up on 34th and Evans, they're proposing a museum. They're talking about an amphitheater. They're talking about a hotel. Omaha, as we know it now, in about 5 years, in North Omaha, you won't recognize it.
Is that something that you are excited about?
Very excited about. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very excited about that.
But is it going to be like? I guess when I ask, "Are you excited?" I'm really asking, "Are we the authors and owners of this vision, or is this, developers and they're not black and?"
Oh no!
No.
This comes from us.
This
So
that's
us.
why it's exciting.
No. This is us.
So it'll be black owned.
Totally black owned and community built.
Yes.
I'm doing my Omaha AI Accelerator. It's about taking black businesses, upskilling them, and then taking them through a pipeline in which they can get gainful employment and actually and grow other business opportunities right here in Omaha. So this is not something that pushes us out and brings some other people in.
Yeah.
Which has happened.
That's where I get nervous because as a DC resident,
yeah.
I moved when I moved to DC. It was 70% black.
Yeah, right.
And the only time I laid eyes on white people was a hockey game. And I just happened to be in Chinatown. But outside of that, everything that I did not really see white folks. It just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And now, 20 years later, that city is so different, and we own nothing, and we barely have spaces. And if black folks there do own something, it's a big deal. But it's like we had it all, And so what do we, my thought about gentrification is I see it in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I'm from. Like I see it in these different black spaces and I'm going, okay, so when we lose the war, right? What happens once the war is over? How do we rebuild once the war is over, right? Because once the revitalization and gentrification and developer, train goes through your neighborhood, it's forever gone. And so how do we, I think it's a beautiful thing that to hear even that 24th Street is still primarily black owned. That's amazing. And y'all only got 11%, you know what I'm saying? Like,
It's still
Are
just
you recording this?
Yep.
yes.
I was gonna say, I'm supposed to be at the other part of the event at 4.
Yeah,
And so-
I'll catch up with you.
Yeah, and I'll be back here by 5. If
That's
you-
okay. Well, I'll be up there though,
Okay.
so I'll just
Well,
get you
yeah.
there.
All right.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like, so have you gone to the Juneteenth Joyfest?
Yeah, well, I'll be going down in here in a few minutes and
Okay.
I'll see everything. But to your point, you're exactly right. Ownership. Remember, we can't get away from it. He who has the gold makes the rule, right? So my understanding, a lot of the money that's coming in is from grant money, but it's being controlled by black entities, right? And being intentional. Again, about, all right, let's develop home ownership. Let's develop black business ownership. Let's thrive as a community. We definitely need the seed capital to come in.